Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Donnelly. I'm one of the admission advisors in the office here. I have Hannah here, who's one of our tour guides, but she's also a transfer student to Stonybrook. So if you guys have any student-oriented questions, some things that you'd like to know more from a student perspective. I also have some other counselors, Christopher, Johnny, Tien, Emilio, and Kristen in here also, who are all staff members here and counselors that can answer questions throughout the day. What we're going to do is you're going to submit stuff through the chat, and I'm going to talk about some of the main things. If there's something more specific, the other counselors can chime in and get to you directly. Okay. So again, welcome, and we'll start answering some questions for you guys. You know, and things that I think would pertain to all of you, the things that you would need to know. Or is good for you to know. And we'll get to those in a moment. So, let's see. And we've got some people. So if anything, you have any questions, just text in your questions in the chat that's right below on the screen. If you want to chat, just we'll answer any questions that you do have, and I'll address those in person. If there's anything that's very specific, we have the other counselors that will jump in and do that as well. I'll be the only one talking, and myself and Hannah, who's a student here. So that will be great. So the first question is can we request a roommate? And is it for sure we will be getting triple rooms? So in terms of living on campus, there's some cases sometimes where we have to triple students. With transfer students, this is less likely. Generally, our triples are usually more for freshmen. It's not to say we haven't tripled transfers in the past, but typically we don't triple transfer students. You can pick your roommate. It's much easier to do that via a transfer student actually than a freshman, because you're not belonging to any kind of undergraduate college. But there's a process that you'll go through when you're getting accepted. Students will deposit, and they'll actually once the deposit's done, the new student preference is done, campus residencies will send out information on getting more involved in the, picking your room and where you want to live on campus and those types of things. Your preferences on how, you want a quiet dorm, like an ultra quiet dorm, or just a regular residence hall. So in terms of picking roommates, they try to accommodate those requests. First year, the first semester, they can't guarantee it, but they usually are pretty good about accommodating those requests. In terms of the triple, we have to see where we are at in terms of residential space. That can be year to year, it's always different. But like I said, we typically don't triple transfer students. It's generally more the freshmen. Hannah, is there anything from a student perspective that you want to add to that in your experience?
We basically really said everything. So whenever we go on tour and we do the stop in the residence halls, we basically say that freshmen are more likely to be triple just because all freshmen are guaranteed housing as long as they pay their housing deposit on time. But as a transfer, I don't think it's as likely that you'd be tripled.
Yeah, it's, you guys have typically when transfers are coming in, you have, whether it's 2 or 3 more years here, we don't want to have you in a triple at that point. We try not to. So again, it's not something that we typically do. We don't triple those students. And there will be a point where campus housing will ask you about specific things. They have like a housing portal that you'll get more information about, that you can actually request to be matched up with students. And they do accommodate those requests. And again, because you're transfer students, you have that ability. Freshmen generally don't, because they belong to a specific undergraduate college. Okay, let's see what else we have here. I know some of you have then let's see here. And let's answer here. Okay. Okay, how does moving from being in an area of interest feel to an actual major work? Okay, this is a good question. All right, so some of you are either business or engineering majors or computer science. We have this thing called area of interest, AOI. And what it really means is that it's sort of like a probationary period where you'll start in the major and they evaluate how well you do your first semester here. And it's generally after the first semester is when they'll say, okay, you know, you've done really well this semester, no issues here, you're now part of the major. There are also issues where a student may need to complete a little bit more coursework and it may lead into 2 semesters. It generally doesn't go past 2 semesters for an AOI student. An AOI student is taking the same courses everyone else would be taking in that major normally. So you're getting advised by computer science. Let's say if you're computer science, you're taking the same computer science courses as everyone else. They're just going to see how well you do after the first semester to take you in after that period. And it's really the department that will make that decision. Let's say, oh, I didn't do as well the first semester. Then they'll say, okay, we're going to wait another semester and see how well you do the second semester then. And now after 2 semesters, they may say, well, you know what, you may need to choose another major because, you know, the selectivity of this major and the limited seats, they're going to say this might not be the right major for you. But typically that doesn't happen. The students that are generally AOI students that we admit are definitely really strong students. It's just the fact that we didn't have as much seat capacity in that major. We took those students in as AOIs and you later get into that. So it's not something that you'll never get into. You'll get into it after your first semester. And that's great. So I always tell the students, never worry about the AOI. The only thing you have to worry about is doing well. And they're just looking for students that are getting at least B level, you know, B grades or better in those courses. So that's just something just to keep in mind. Let's say, let's see here. Just want to see if we don't get anything that someone's asked already. So I don't see my transfer credits from Suffolk Community College on DegreeWorks. How am I supposed to sign up for the right classes? All right, so let's back up here and talk about what happens after you're accepted as a transfer student. So there's 3 things you need to do once you're an accepted student. As an accepted student, you're required to deposit for tuition. If you want housing, you'll deposit for housing, and then your orientation fee. All right, so you do those 3 things initially, and then right after that, you're going to wait a day and then do your new student preference form for telling us, the advisors, which is a different office, what your preferences are in terms of your major. Are there any kind of subcategories, like are you biology but you want pre-med, or are you English and you want pre-med? There's also things that prep housing on that preference form if you're interested in housing. So once the deposits are made and the preference form is completed, students will then get some more information about you know, housing, but also the transfer credits. And what that basically is you're going to get a net ID. And that's going to be able to get into the housing stuff, but it also is going to be able to get into the DegreeWorks and everything else. What the transfer credits basically, the overall is you need at least a C or better for the courses to transfer. Typically, all the courses will transfer over. Generally, we don't have a lot of issues in terms of courses going for equivalence and that type of thing. There are some majors like engineering, computer science that may be a little bit more picky with those. Physics sometimes can be kind of funny with certain things as well. But what will happen is when you go to orientation, and that you'll get your orientation date when you've completed your deposits and you've completed that new student preference form, that initiates everything. Then we know you're a student, you want to become a Stonybrook student, you're committing to us. So they start sending you information about your like the housing if you're interested in housing, but also your scheduling for admissions. And the scheduling happens at orientation part 1. Now, in a regular year without the COVID-19 issue, those things usually happen in person in June. So we register all of our transfer students before the freshmen. So you guys get better selection of classes than our incoming freshmen, which is great. Students will sit with an advisor and they'll go over their schedules in terms of what they want to take. Some of that information has been pre-done because of that preference form. So if I'm a business major, I fill out the preference form. I tell them, yes, I'm still intending on doing business through the preference form. That tells the advisors, okay, we're going to prep this. And they prep everything so that when you come in, the department has given the advisors all the necessary checklists for that major. And then the advisor will sit and actually go over everything with you. The major is typically in the same room as you. So they're kind of walking around, making sure everything is okay. Now for this year with COVID-19, everything's being done virtually. So with that virtually, it's going to be sort of in a format like this that you're going to be working with an advisor. The good thing is that because of all the technology that we've been doing and all the database stuff, we actually have courses pre-evaluated for tons of schools within the country. If there's any question about some of your classes in terms of transferring, let's say you go to University of Delaware and we have maybe limited courses evaluated for University of Delaware. Let's say you've taken a physics course that we've never seen before. You'll have to get that evaluated by the department at some point. And our department will tell whether or not, okay, this is equivalent to our physics 113, whatever that course may be. So if we had previously a student at Stoneybrook who came from, let's say, University of Delaware, and they had their chemistry courses evaluated, and you come in now with that same chemistry course, well, we have that evaluated already. And you can actually see this stuff on our website. I usually tell students the easiest way to find this is just Google Stonybrook transfer equivalency or equivalencies, whatever you want. I just say Stonybrook transfer equivalency. And it actually takes you to the web page where you can actually search by course or you can search by school. I typically like to search by school. So I go in there, I'll put, University of Delaware or Suffolk Community College, and then all the courses that we have evaluated for that school pops up, and it's all alphabetical order. And you can look them up and you can see actually what they transfer as. And when you're really using this transfer guide, you'll also see something called an SBC next to the course. And what SBC means is Stonybrook curriculum, and that basically is our core curriculum that everybody has to satisfy no matter what major. So if you're thinking about, I want to transfer in some of my classes, I want to know if they actually go for a degree requirement. If it has an SBC next to it, that's a great thing because you're going to have a core curriculum requirement satisfied. If you're looking for something for the major, you want to make sure it has like a course that it's equivalent to. So I'll give you guys an example. If you took a general chemistry course and it comes over as Chem 131 at Stonybrook, that's great. If you're a chem major, that chem's going into the chemistry major because it's got an exact equivalent course. If it comes over as like it says TCE next to it, that means transfer credit elective. That means it's a random elective course. We don't have anything like it here, but you'll get credit for it still. But it won't go towards a requirement. You might also get something like chemistry elective or English elective, well, then that's up to the department to say, hey, we'll use it as a random elective that you need in the department, but it doesn't have an exact course, equivalent here. So they've evaluated that course. They've said we don't have anything like that here. So that meant then that's when I'm going to get the credit for it, but it's not going to go towards anything in my major or core curriculum. In the transfer course evaluation too, you'll also see courses that maybe you don't see a course at all listed. You're looking at George Mason. You went to George Mason and they don't have this, philosophy course listed at all for in the thing. That's okay. That just means that we've never seen the course before. It just needs to be evaluated by that respected department. So that's how the credits work. And again, just to reiterate, as long as the school is Middle States accredited, and that we are, and really you're looking at all community colleges, the typical four-year schools, and their junior colleges. The specialty schools are the ones that to watch out for in terms of credits. Military credits will take sometimes, but they don't typically go towards anything specific. We don't have life experience credits. Some students will get that sometimes through online programs or from things like SUNY Empire, programs like that. We don't have anything like that. But we do transfer pretty much everything else. And like I said, even if you went to a culinary school, which, Stonybrook has no culinary courses, you can still get credit for it. It's just that it will be an elective. And keep in mind, and I'm mentioning all this for a reason, because these are all questions that transfer students have all the time coming in when they come into the office is, how long is it going to take me to graduate? And, if this doesn't go towards anything, then what is it for? Well, you're going to need a certain amount of elective credit to graduate, because when you look at your major and you look at the core curriculum, it doesn't exactly add up to 120 credits that you need to graduate. So you may need to have some elective courses to get you to that 120 credits. So that's where sometimes electives are just random electives are great. You don't want like 50 to 60 credits of random electives. I'm talking about like 15, 20 credits, maybe a little bit more. I would say, no more than 30. And then it becomes kind of useless at that point. But so you will need some credit in that respect. Another thing is how long is it going to take me to finish in terms of how long is it going to take me to graduate? I have this amount of credits. I'm coming in. I can tell you guys that everybody's different, obviously. But for the most part, if you're doing a liberal arts associate's degree at a community college, so basically any kind of, what I mean by liberal arts is any kind of AS or AA, an Associates of Science or Associates of Arts. There's also something called an AAS. That's an Associate in Applied Science. Those are more specific to getting you out into a career after a 2-year school. So they're not the best in terms of transferring to a 4-year institution, but that's not to say you won't have a lot of good courses in there and that will transfer. It's just that they're more for getting out into the right into the workforce. So if you have an AA or an AS, and you're coming in with like 60 credits, you typically have two more years to do at Stoneybrook. If you're engineering or computer science, those majors have more credits that are required in the major. So it's typically sometimes those transfer students can have 3 more years, usually no more than that, but anywhere between 2 and 3 more years. So that's always something that you have to kind of consider too as well. If you're coming from another 4-year school, if you're transferring, let's say after your first year, it's generally seamless because everybody's asking for the same things unless you went to some very specialized school. If you went to a music conservatory like McGill or Eastman, and now you're coming to Stonybrook for music, well, ours is different. So you'll have a lot of music done, but you don't have a lot of liberal arts credits. So that might be a little different for a student there. But for most of you, you're going to schools that are very similar to Stonybrook. So if you're transferring after your first or second year, it's pretty seamless. You're kind of picking up where you left off. One of the things I think is important to understand is the sciences at Stonybrook require math to take the science classes. So the only time it could put you behind is if you've got 60 credits and you don't even have pre-calculus yet. That might, give you a little bit of a roadblock in terms of getting into science classes, because they require calculus 1 to get into chem, and the chem is needed to get into the bios. The same as with physics. They want to see calculus either being taken with it or before it. So the only time I see students that might, have 60 credits and they may have more than 2 years then to do is because their math level is behind. But other than that, I don't see it. It's pretty, like I said, you pick up where you left off, and we're trying to get you out as quick as possible too. We're not trying to keep you here any longer to spend more money than you need to. We're not a private school in that sense where we're trying to keep you here longer. We'd like you to get in and out as fast as you can. I'm going to switch gears a little bit just so we can get some things here too as well. If students are taking summer courses just because the fall is coming, if any of you are thinking about taking summer classes, you can take summer classes at your local community college if you wanted to before coming here. That's totally fine. Just make sure you're still under 84 credits, because 84 credits is the max that we stop at. The other thing is too, if you're thinking about taking summer classes at Stonybrook, prior to you starting in the fall, you can do that as well. And you don't have to actually apply for summer session. Summer session's website, and again, you can Google summer session Stonybrook. It'll take you right there, and they'll ask you, what kind of student are you? Are you incoming for the fall? Are you a visiting student? A visiting student means you're taking summer classes and you're getting out and you're going back to your home institution. But if you're an incoming student, there's a way to do it where you don't have to apply for summer session. You can just actually, what they do is they term, the correct verbiage is to be term activated, and you could get actually activated prior to the fall so that you can register for summer classes. And that you don't need to be advised for, unless you want to wait for advisement for orientation for that. But if you know what you want to take ahead of time, you can sign up for a summer session right away, but you won't be able to sign up for fall classes until you attend orientation. And again, for anybody who's joining us, or just joining us, orientation is going to be virtual. I don't know the specific details, but it will be something that's similar kind of to this, but it'll be one-on-one with students and orientation leaders. And they'll go over a material, your advisement and the schedule. You have to go through orientation in order to register for classes. There's no way to avoid doing that, all right? And like all of you, we're adjusting to this situation as it unfolds. So as we approach this year, another thing to update you guys too is, and I know this is going to be some of your questions, is what's going to happen with fall? Are we going to have classes in person, sitting in classrooms, or are we going to be virtual online? They're still trying to figure that out in terms of would it be possible? I think the university would really like to have students in person like we normally do traditionally. But we're monitoring the situation, and it's not only up to us, it's up to the governor, and we will be getting back to students indefinitely what we're going to be doing in terms of whether students are going to be sitting in classrooms, or are you going to be taking courses virtually. The faculty are already preparing for either one. So they're preparing for either a virtual environment or an in-person environment. So that will all be, you know, hashed out. I'm sure we'll know more about that in the next month or so. We'll get back to you as soon as we know. But again, we're prepared, and we're hoping that the hope now is to have classes like we normally do. But we're also having that as a backup as well. So for deferring admission, so we don't typically defer admission. Okay, in certain special circumstances, we might, for like a military person who's been called up for duty. We did that during the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war, where we had a lot of students who were reservists that got called up and they couldn't make their first semester. So we were able to defer that for them for that reason. You know, deferral process, we have to review each candidate and see. We typically don't do that in terms of only because it in the planning process with, you know, planning ahead. Obviously, this COVID-19 situation is unique and something we've never gone through. So if you're thinking about deferring, if that's something you really want to do, you can email us at enroll@stonybrook.edu, and then we'll get back to you specifically on any kind of thing, any kind of procedure with that. Again, if you have any specific questions regarding your own situation, you can email us at any time at enroll@stonybrook.edu, ENROLL@stonybrook.edu, and all the counselors were on there answering those questions. So let me see here. I was talking about the orientation date and how that impacts, and that's when you're making your schedule out and it's mandatory. Students were asking, when would I receive that appointment date? We're hoping in the next few weeks. As I mentioned, they're going to be starting in June. So the orientation office is working on the virtual environment now, but they are prepared to start assigning orientation dates, and you'll start getting that information, I would say, in the next couple of weeks. By the end of this month, you'll start seeing, and in the beginning of May, you're going to start seeing that, because they're going to give you a couple of weeks ahead of time to prep. And there's really nothing for you to do in terms of prep unless there's you know, placement exams. For those of you who are, I did see a question about placement exams. If you are interested, if you are concerned about placement exams, transfer students don't really have to take too much in terms of placement exams. It's much more for freshmen. But let's say you're a science major or a business major. Those majors require calculus at some point. Let's say you don't have pre-calc yet, all right, and you're transferring in, you would need to take the math placement. If you're a history major or an English major or a philosophy major that doesn't require calculus or any kind of math specifically in that major, you don't have to take the placement exam. You can take just the next level course in terms of math. But the placement is required if you don't have pre-calc and you're taking a science major, okay? Now, let's say you took statistics. That's fine if you are, you'll never have to take another math course if you're a history major, or if you're English major or something in humanities, even social sciences like anthropology. Psych just depends if you're the BS or the BA. But if you ever have any questions about it, you can email us, absolutely. But again, it's much more focused on if you're doing science or business, obviously engineering too, but you would know already if you were into engineering, and you'd have to have Calc 1 and 2 already. For English placement exam, most of the time transfer students have English composition, so you don't have to take a placement exam for for Stonybrook as a transfer student, because you have English composition already, or writing 101, whatever it's called at your previous school. So you don't need to take the writing placement if you have that. We do have a foreign language challenge exam. Our foreign language requirement for all majors, with the exception of engineering and computer science, they don't have to take foreign language because they take much more in their major, so they're waived from that. But if you're, anyone else in any other major, you'll have to have an elementary 2 foreign language. So that means you either have to have that done, or you could do it at Stonybrook when you get here. Or you could take the challenge exam, which you could either place out of one and just take the second one, or you could place out of all of them. And there's a lot of students that are Stonybrook that are bilingual. Many of them can take a placement exam and ace it and not have to take a language here, which is great. The only other placement aside from the English, the math, and then the challenge exam for language is a chemistry placement. If you haven't taken chemistry and your major requires chemistry, then you'll have to take the placement exam for chemistry too. So if you have chemistry already, you won't have to take that placement exam. But again, like we have bio majors that may have taken biology at their current school but never took chemistry. Bios need to take chemistry at Stonybrook, so they'll have to take that placement exam. Okay, let's see. I want to see if I can get Hannah in here with some stuff here. Let's see if there's any kind of okay, let's see. Okay, a lot of these questions I'm seeing here are repeated questions, basically some of the stuff I've gone over. Is there any experience gaining activities besides internships? Hannah, are you, I'll talk quickly about internships and stuff. So we have research on campus that you can get involved in. That could be research at the university hospital, on West Campus as well in our laboratories, and with faculty, you could do stuff on your own. There's a program called Eureka. It stands for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activities. And basically they are the hub that gets you involved in doing research here. Now you could do your own research, or you could do research that's ongoing and join it. There's also the Career Center that can help you with internships. They'll help you find internships. They also help you out with career search and stuff like that, and counseling. We also have study abroad that we consider experiential learning as well. So I know with the recent situation with COVID-19, that's probably the last thing that people want to do, but this will be over eventually, and we'll have some normalcy soon. So your second or third semester, you might decide you want to do study abroad. And that's available too. And keep in mind, study abroad, we have all the offerings within all the SUNY campuses. So it's not just what Stonybrook offers. You could choose study abroad programs that are offered through Binghamton, through Oswego, Albany, Buffalo. As long as they offer it, you can do that through Stonybrook. So these are all experiential learnings. Typically students will do this around their junior year, but you could do it anytime your sophomore or senior year too. Hannah, do you want to, I don't know if you're at that point yet. So I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot with that.
Okay.
Is there anything you can kind of chime in on in terms of, things that you've been thinking of, or maybe that you've done already?
So I actually earned my EXP Plus credit already, because after I graduated from Suffolk, that's summer after, so last summer I decided to study abroad in Spain. So I did that, and then that counted as my EXP Plus, and then it excused, I think, taking another language class. So that was my EXP Plus, so I did that. But I know a lot of people do internships through different offices and things like that. So personally, I use Handshake, the app that's connected through the Career Center.
Mhm.
So I just sign up for that. I put my major, my GPA, and then it'll basically cater to like what my major is, give me internship opportunities that are on campus or off campus and things like that. So that's what I think if I didn't have my EXP Plus already, I would look into doing an internship through some kind of office.
Yeah, what Hannah was talking about, the EXP Plus, it's one of the SBC, like one of the Stonybrook core requirements. So we require you to do experiential learning. And so what that means is you could either do an internship or study abroad or research on campus. So, you know, you're going to leave here with some type of experiential learning component. And you're not just limited to one thing. You could do, if you've done your EXP Plus course like Hannah did, you can then get involved in an internship too, and then you could do research as well. So there's no limit to what you want to do. One of the things that are cool too, one of our tour guides applied to the medical school and got into Stonybrook's medical school here, and she was an undergrad at Stonybrook. This happened a couple of years ago, and she was part of the student-run ambulance corps at Stonybrook here, which is a great program because it gives you firsthand experience, and it's a student-run ambulance corps, which is very rare if you can find those even at most schools, because you really have to have a hospital that's on campus and that's attached to your university. And, you know, us having a hospital just makes all that much easier. So those are things that are some other things on top of those things to get involved in. And I know I get a ton of transfer students that are interested in going to medical school, dental school, veterinary school, PA programs, for, you know, physician assistant, physical therapy, occupational therapy. If any of you are interested in that field at all, you need to get involved in something within our hospital or research. They are going to pick your resume apart in those programs. You know, just to give you an idea, like physician assistant, I was talking to the coordinator over there not long before we were, you know, working remotely, and it's like a 9% acceptance rate. So you really have to be a star in terms of both in the classroom and outside the classroom, in terms of just for a physician assistant. So you can imagine what the medical schools are looking for, and physical therapy and dental schools. So it's really important to get involved, and it's very easy to do if you are a student at Stonybrook to get involved in our hospital, our dental school. We also are the co-manager of the Stonybrook, the co-manager of the Brookhaven National Laboratory. And that's in Brookhaven, which is 20 minutes away from us. And it's the only national lab in the Northeast. And we have faculty that are duly appointed to Stonybrook and that facility. There are other faculty members from 200 other universities that are there. And there's everything from like health science research to nuclear physics done there. It's actually cool. It's an old Army base that was converted into a national lab, and they have a collider underground in there and stuff. We do take students for tours there at some points. It's a, you know, it's one of those opportunities where you have off campus that we still have an affiliation with, that you can get involved there. And the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratories, if any of you are interested in like genetic research, they're like one of the top laboratories in the country for genetic research. We run a PhD program through them. So we have a lot of connections in those areas, and then outwardly everywhere. You know, we run a veterans home, which some of you may want to do volunteer work in if you're thinking about something in the healthcare fields. So definitely a lot of great opportunity. Hannah, why don't you let people know what major you are, by the way?
I'm a psychology major.
Psychology major, okay, yeah. So bio and psych are the two most popular majors in terms of like size. And another popular major among transfer students too is health science as well. And if any of you have any questions about health science, I can talk about that too, because that's always a good thing to talk about. That's always a good one. Hannah, do you live on campus or commute?
So I commute. I live in Bellport, like near Patchogue. So it's like a 30-minute drive, like 35 minutes, and that's like including traffic. So it's not too bad. So yeah, I commute every day.
So maybe give everybody an idea of what it's like as a commuter student in terms of getting in the morning and parking and everything from parking to, you know, getting around the campus. Just because I think some people look at us as this enormous, gigantic place, but they also want to know, like, what's the parking situation like too?
Mm-hmm. So we have the commuter parking lot, which is the South P lot. It's huge. Usually you'll always get parking. It's just that maybe it has to be like a little further in the back, because like the spots closest to like the bus stop will fill up quickly. So if you don't mind like walking or anything, then you should be fine. But usually you just park in the South P lot, and then you would have to take the shuttle to the main campus, which it drops you off like right next to the SAC, or the Student Activity Center. So you'll get on the shuttle, depending on what day and like what time, because like classes I know are really popular Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning. So the line will be kind of long, but the way the buses run is like, there'll be like one bus usually right after another. So it's like when one bus will fill up, then the next bus will come, and then that one fills up, and then the next bus. So, and they run pretty frequently, maybe every 10, 15 minutes. So yeah, once you get on the shuttle, it'll take you to the Student Activity Center, and then you'll be basically in the center of the academic mall, which is where you'll have all the food, all of your class, all the classrooms. And then if you do want to get around campus, like to your classes and things easier, we do have people that skateboard, ride their bikes, rollerblade. There was someone who used to unicycle around campus. So we have all those things that you can do. And if you want to ride your bike, but you don't have one, we have bikes on campus, the Wolfie share ride system. So you just like swipe your ID card and you get the bike free for the first hour. So that's usually how people get around. I usually just walk. So
Yeah, it's everything is walkable too. So once you're on campus, getting around from one class to the next, you're not going to be late because everything is walkable.
Mm-hmm.
If you're someone who is like accepted to the nursing school, or if you're in respiratory care or social work and clinical laboratory sciences, those are the clinical health science majors that are done by a different admissions office than us. Okay, so if anyone is here looking into those majors and looking at those majors as a possible destination, or if you're already accepted to one of those and you joined us today, your classes will be in the hospital side, okay, which is across Nichols Road for those of you who are familiar with the area, but it's basically just across the street in the hospital part, in the health science center. You guys won't have any classes in there unless you're in those majors. Students who are doing volunteer work or stuff, you know, will go over there. And there's an underpass, like you go right underneath the road and right into this health science center. And that's not even far either. That's a total easily walkable distance too. So definitely the campus is nice because it's walkable. So it's not something to be intimidated about. We do have over 17,000 undergraduate students. So it's a big school, but it's not in terms of getting around. The parking aspect, you know, having the South P lot serves two purposes. It avoids having a traffic jam on campus. And it also allows for a huge parking lot so that people can get in and get a space. You can park closer, like outside some of the buildings. There's certain parking permits that are needed. So if there's any ones that students can park in around the academic buildings, there are fewer and far between. But if you're in really early, or excuse me, later on during the day, you might be able to get into those parking spots. I always tell students, I would just go straight for the South P lot. You always know you're going to get a spot. You get out, you get on the bus, and then it takes you right up. On nice days, I've seen students walking from the South P lot to campus if they have the time, and it's not a far walk. It's not like you're in you're in another town or blocks away. It's just that it gets you there faster on the shuttle. But you won't need to take the shuttle from one class to the next. There are shuttles around campus if you need it. There's one building, the Marine Science building, that sometimes students might have in their upper division Marine Sciences that you may want to take the shuttle. It's a little bit further away, but not too far. But everything else is centrally located. And with 17,000 undergraduate students, the reality of the class sizes is that they can vary in terms of population. One student was asking about the class sizes, and so class size. So for someone like Hannah in psychology, or someone in biology, so bio, psych, sociology, chemistry, maybe like the first initial physics course, you can have large lecture halls. Like you can have anywhere from 200 to 500 people. And that really depends upon, the initial classes, the gateway classes in terms of getting into the major. Those are going to be the bigger ones, obviously. Once you start getting into your major, it starts coming down drastically. But you have to know that if you're coming to Stonybrook, it's going to be okay. Well, I'm a psych major, bio major. Well, you're going to have to expect larger classes. If you're someone who is a music major, or an English major, or environmental studies major, you're going to have smaller classes, and you may never see a lecture hall. You might have to take a psychology course for your major, let's say, or you took it for your core curriculum. That might be the largest course you ever have if you're in one of those majors. Business is smaller. And what we consider small for us is anywhere around 30 to 50 students. Some classes you might have less than that, but typically it's around 50 students is what we are, we're looking at. And then again, those intro level bios and chems, and maybe in some of them, even the beginning of your junior year could be in the hundreds in terms of size of class. But you break down for recitations. I know some of the community colleges don't have those kind of things because they're smaller size classes. But basically what you're going to do is, so if some of you are signing up for one of these courses, and I'll use Chemistry 131 for an example. You're signing up for Chem 131, you're going to sign up for the lecture, and then you're going to sign up for the lab, and then you're going to sign up for the recitation at orientation. And so you have the lecture, everybody's there. Okay, that's like 400 people. Then you're going to have your lab, which is really small. It could be like 20 people, 25 people, because you figure the labs here are not going to be huge. They're smaller in size. And then you have the recitation. I'm sorry. The recitation is, could be anywhere from like 20 to 30 students. And that's really like a study group sort of going over the material again. So the faculty members teaching the lecture, you're getting the laboratory instructors doing the laboratories, and then you have a TA, which is typically a PhD student who's doing their PhD here. They'll do the recitation. So they'll go over the material again and some of the things that are pressing. Hannah, have you taken any recitations, or were you done with those classes before you got to Stonybrook?
Yeah, so I finished all my intro classes that would have been like the 400, 500 students.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in, like my classes now are around that like 250, 300 kind. Yep. So I don't have any recitations for any of my classes.
Okay, good. So you could see, Hannah coming from Suffolk. Did you finish your associate's degree, Hannah? Yeah. Okay. So, as I was mentioning, you're kind of picking up where you left off in a way. You're taking your courses through the community college that are smaller in size, and you're kind of avoiding some of those enormous classes.
Right.
You know, like, again, like Hannah mentioned, and I mentioned before, some majors like psych and bio are just so popular. And they're also, their courses are so popular with other programs because they share some courses with other programs that you may get a course that can be, you know, like 200, 250 people still, you know, in that major, where some others you won't even get, you know, more than 30, you know, or 40 students. The other thing I wanted to go over too was, you know, majoring and minoring. Some students were asking about, you know, majors and minors. Just keep in mind, a minor is not something that is going to be on your degree. Okay, so when you major in something, you know, that's what it is. You're majoring in psych or bio or in English. The minor is really to satisfy your own interests or to supplement, you know, something within your major. So if you're a bio major and you want to minor in chemistry or minor in material science or something like that, it kind of, you know, they kind of go hand in hand together, and that's great. Or like business and economics, a lot of students will do that, and they go hand in hand. That's great. But let's say you're an art, you love art or you love music, but you don't necessarily think there's a career possibility, or you don't want to, you know, go into that field in terms of a career. You could do that as a minor and then major in your whatever it is that you're doing, business or bio or whatever. Minors are like 21 credits roughly, so it's not that many classes. You're looking at like 7 classes. So it's not a lot of specificity in that area, but it's a nice way to kind of get involved. The other thing too is students will ask about double majoring. You can double major if you want to. Just keep in mind you might be here a little longer. So if you're coming in and you're expecting, I'll probably be out in 2 years, you may be out in 3 years, or maybe it's just maybe more a semester and maybe a couple summer classes to finish that second major. Something like business and economics, they usually work really well. I've seen students graduate in 4 years with you know, total and get the double major. And that's the same in terms of like a psych and a sociology major. They might be able to do the same thing depending upon, you know, what they're coming in with. But just as long as you keep in the back of your mind that if I'm in a double major, I have to expect that I might be here a little longer. And that's fine. There's also joint degree programs, you know, where we have a joint with our master's programs. So you have things like engineering has a master's program that you can get in. So it's a 5-year program total. So you as transfer students are still eligible for those types of things. These are not things that are just offered to freshmen. In fact, you can't get into those things until you're a student here. So once you guys have a GPA after either a first semester, you can approach your major and say, hey, listen, I'd like to stay here for a master's. And we do have things in engineering. We have things in business. The cool thing about the business program is that they'll take people that aren't even business majors. So if you're a psych major and you want to stay for your MBA, they have a fast track for both business majors and non-business majors, where you can get out in that 5th year and have a master's in business administration, which is very cool. For students that are interested in like education, they have the 5-year program as well. And there's a couple of others that have that too. There are some programs like psychology that are so competitive here that Stonybrook is so well known for psychology that they don't have a program that's like that to go right into the, you know, the next level of education, just because the competitive nature and that type of thing, and the amount of seats that are available. And each major has their own, you know, their own way of doing things too. Sometimes they are looking to diversify their student population in terms of getting students, you know, that are from all over the country. There was one good, there was a question here. Do transfers, will they be able to join one of the undergraduate communities? the undergraduate colleges, those are for freshmen, okay? And here's the thing. Freshmen have a harder time adjusting to Stonybrook than transfers do, okay? Mainly because they are coming from high school environment, like you guys all know already, and then you're having to be exposed to the college environment where you're in class less and you're doing work a lot more on your own. The undergraduate colleges is more of like a support system to get them acclimated quicker. There's also a larger population of freshmen than there are transfer students. So it also helps make that population shrink a little bit more into more manageable groups so that we're able to keep track and make sure everybody's doing okay. Transfers are typically their own sort of undergraduate college, and they have a benefit of taking this course called ADV 101, which I would recommend to you if you guys are accepted students and you're going into your orientation. They may recommend that course to you. I would highly recommend it because it's not like anything that's like extra work or anything. It's basically a course that gets you acclimated to Stonybrook's campus a lot quicker. So they have each class that's dedicated to a part of campus. They have the Career Center come in. They'll have Study Abroad come in. They'll take you to the library. So there's different things that are, they kind of show you. It's like your Experience 101 seminars for any of you that have taken it in your first year of college. But it's much more dedicated and specific for transfer students. So it's designed for transfers. There'll be no freshmen in it. The freshmen have their own programming. So we do the same thing we do with the freshmen, but it's just a little bit different. So to answer that question, you're not eligible for the undergraduate college, but that's okay because the transfers themselves are their own undergraduate college and they have those options of taking. The one thing the freshmen do, they have to take the 101. You don't have to take that ADV 101 if you don't want to. But I would recommend it. It's a credit. It's not any extra work or anything. It's a lot of help in getting acclimated to campus. The other thing was I saw here, looking here, a lot of you guys had a lot of great questions. I've answered some of these already in terms of space between classes. Like, can I get from one end to the other in enough time for classes? Absolutely, that's not an issue. And I talked again for any newcomers in just now that with planning ahead, we're hoping to have classes in person, but we're also preparing for classes to be online virtually. So faculty are preparing themselves for either or. We'll probably know more by this coming May, and I think you're going to realize that nationally too, where schools are starting to go online. You have heard some schools have gone online already. I think we're hoping that, I think we're trying to be optimistic and hope that maybe we can still, but there's a good possibility we could be online for the fall. And if that's the case, that's fine too. And, the faculty, again, have everything and they're preparing and they have the summer too to get everything together. If you're taking summer session classes and you want to take summer session classes, which you're totally eligible for, those are all online. Okay, so those are completely online. There are no in-person classes for those. So definitely, we know that already. But we're keeping out hope that maybe we can have some normalcy by the fall. But if not, that's okay. If we want to be extra careful and do that, that's fine. And we'll let you know in the next coming weeks what's going to be. I think we'll know more from the governor. Again, we're a state school. We have to go by what he says too, and then we'll let you guys know. Let's see any other things that about a speaker. So one of the students had asked. I remember I talked to you about transferring credits over, and you guys will basically have two sets of requirements. One set of requirements is the SBC, the Stonybrook curriculum, and then the other is your major. And they can actually coexist with each other, and they actually do more so now than they ever done. I was in the old system called the DEC, the DEC, And there was a lot of extra stuff that students had to do. Now they're actually finishing stuff a lot quicker because what you're taking for your major, a lot of the classes will count also for your SBC requirements, especially towards the end, like where Hannah's going into her, the junior and senior year. There's these upper division courses that you have to take that are already required in your major. So you're getting both of them done at the same time. But this can happen too earlier on. We'll use Hannah as an example, just so she can, if she wants to chime in. Like if you've taken like Intro to Psychology, Intro to Psych takes 2 core curriculum requirements. So she's a psych major. She needs Intro to Psych for her major. So that takes 1 requirement. It also takes the social science requirement, which is the SBS requirement. And then it also takes the CER requirement, which is later down on the line. But so she gets 2 SBCs for Intro to Psych, and also she's progressing in her major with the Intro to Psych. So that's a kind of a good example of how some classes can be double dipped, as we call it, like they can be used for multiple SBC requirements. So when you look at a list of SBC requirements, I can't tell you it's going to be exactly this amount of credits, because if you are someone who is, taking certain classes, they can count for multiple requirements. For example, like U.S. history is another one that can count as an SBS, a social behavioral science, and it also counts for a USA requirement. And these are all designations. They're categories: USA, SBS, CER, as I mentioned before. ART is the art. Like Suffolk Community College has an art class. It's a photography class, and it counts for art and the tech. So the art and the TECH course. So you can get those both satisfied with just 1 class. And we have those classes here too at Stonybrook. So you'd be able to, get into those types of, courses here at Stonybrook that can take multiple requirements. And then it's also the ones that share with your major, like we talked about Hannah's. She's going to have a bunch of courses in her SBC requirement that she's either done probably already, and we'll be doing that will count for her major, but also for her core curriculum. And yeah, I'm thinking, Hannah, I'm like thinking statistics is our math requirement for the QPS for our core curriculum, and then statistics is also required for psychology. And then you have the psych courses, and then the next level psych, which it could be like abnormal psych or any of the other the next level after intro could be the SBS plus. Right. I know psych also requires a philosophy course and a bio course for their major. So the bio could be your science course for your core curriculum.
And a lot of these I came in and they were already done.
Yeah. Yep. So like the courses you took at Suffolk, counted for all those, but they also counted for your major too. So you have a lot of progress that's done a lot quicker. Anything you want to tell students about in terms of those types of things with the SBCs and stuff? Anything? It's okay. Yeah. Like, have you ever, when you came in from Suffolk, did you find that you had a lot of them done already? I'm sure, because you did.
Yeah, when I did, like what you were saying with the first orientation, when you sit down with your major advisor and they kind of help you in picking your classes. And when I looked at my credit evaluations and stuff, I saw that a lot of my credits, almost, I think all of them transferred. So like a lot of them, and like we were just saying, a lot of them were my SBC. So I only had like a couple more that I needed to take. And sometimes when they do go over, it'll be whatever it was called at your previous college, maybe is something different at Stonybrook, but it still counts as basically the same class. It's just kind of like a different name. So yeah, when you come in, like you said, a lot of them do go together and they kind of knock off a lot on the list.
Yeah.
So you'll have like a couple more that you need to take, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, I think that for many of you transferring in, you're going to find that you're sort of picking up where you left off. It's not something that, again, if you were in some type of program, and I see students from all different types of programs, but for the most part, whether you're getting your AS or AA from a community college, or you're going from a four-year school here that's similar to Stonybrook. Maybe it's a smaller liberal arts college, but it's still got a core curriculum and stuff. You find that you're completing similar requirements and you're picking up where you left off. Even some of the Jesuit schools, like schools that have to take like religion courses, those theology courses. Some of those Catholic universities, those count as humanities courses. So even those will come over as requirements, which are fine. The only time I see difficulty is, again, whether you've gone to a music conservatory or if you've come from like a trade school, or some type of certificate program. Like I said, I mentioned the military credit. They don't really transfer and translate into the same courses that we have here. So again, but they can be brought in for credit. It's just that it's not going to really do too much for you unless you need those, and everybody does need a certain amount of elective credit that it can be used for. But I guess if you're coming in with, let's say, 40 credits of elective credit, that's a lot more than you need. And at least you have, though, if you need, let's say, 20 credits or 24 credits later on for electives to graduate, then you have them. But for the most part, students are in good shape when they get here. I wanted to talk about something that for some of the engineering and computer science people, it's gotten very, very competitive in those majors. Those majors are very popular, as probably not as popular as bio and psych, but they're getting popular enough that we're seeing more applications than we have seats for, unfortunately. So the amount of seats that are available in the engineering and applied sciences, like computer science and stuff, and information systems, applied math and statistics, and then all the engineering programs, they're very limited, okay? And that has to do with a bunch of different things, primarily for the accreditations, and we have very strong accreditations in all of our programs from psych to, engineering. But in terms of being able to get you educated and the quality of education, we don't want to, risk any of that. So the tough thing is that you have to be accepted to those programs as a direct major or as an area of interest into that major as a transfer student. So if you guys are interested in any of those programs as a prospective student, so let's say you're applying or you haven't applied yet, there are some prerequisite courses you're going to need for those majors. For students who are accepted already, let's say you were accepted as a physics major or a business major, and now you want computer science or engineering. It's probably not going to happen. I never want to say never, but the reality is that you need to have certain courses done prior to getting into those programs, and you won't be able to get into the courses that you need, the prereqs that you need to get into those programs here at Stonybrook. They're closed off to majors only. The other problem is that the space availability in that major. So they're very, very, very conscious of students trying to sort of get in the back way, saying, I'm going to come in as a general major, or I'll come in as a undecided or another major, and then I'll just change my major to engineering or computer science. You won't be able to do that. And they're turning away more students each year doing that, to the point where it's getting stricter and stricter. They're almost putting up like firewalls for that process. So students that are sort of investing their time and their money and trying to say, eventually I'm going to do that, I wouldn't, okay? Because you're going to get down to the end of the line and realize you're not going to be able to get in. And then you've wasted all this time and money and energy. And I don't want to see you guys, you know, get involved in that and waste your time or energy. So if you are interested in engineering or computer science or information systems or applied math, primarily the engineering, computer science, information systems, those are the ones that we're not seeing students getting in after the fact. You have to get in at the gate. At the time that you file your application, you have to put that you're interested in those majors, and you have to either be accepted directly into that major or as an area of interest into that major. Either one is fine. But if you're applying as another major and you want to change into one of those three that I mentioned, it's probably not going to happen. And for some of the other ones, like technical systems management, which is another major in that College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. So technical systems management, applied math. I can't make guarantees, but it's a possibility you can get into those later on, provided that you have the prerequisites and the major agrees to it. There is a possibility, so those aren't as closed off as the engineering and computer science. So I just don't want to avoid, I want to avoid that frustration for you guys to say, hey, I went to school to Stonybrook for 2 semesters and they turned me away from that major because I didn't get in at the gate. So that could definitely happen, and it probably will happen. So it's just really important for you guys to understand that they're a difficult area to get into. The other one I wanted to mention too is anybody interested in nursing. I get a lot of students that are interested in finishing their prerequisites here. So either they're transferring from a community college or they're coming from another 4-year institution, and their eyes are on nursing eventually. And the way nursing works here is that your first 2 years are all prereqs, and then you apply actually your sophomore year to start in your junior year in the nursing program. Not all students are going to be taken. They take about 80 students a year. So there are going to be Stonybrook students that don't get into nursing, and they've invested 2 years already. Again, a very small capped program. And the problem is with that is that there's not enough teaching nurses in the country. So you'll find that you'll have a lot of, it's a competitive area major to get into regardless where you go. But Stonybrook takes about 80 students a year. So if you're someone who's looking to get into that program, that's fine. I usually recommend finishing your prereqs at your current school and then applying directly to the nursing major using their application through their admissions office, not ours, not the general admissions office. If you're transferring over halfway through completing your nursing prerequisites, that's fine, but we always run into issues because Stonybrook always requires more prereqs for their science courses than most schools do. So we get back to that math issue where I've had students come in and they're like, well, I took statistics and I took my chemistry, and now all I need is microbiology and a few other courses. Well, unfortunately, you're going to need a second chemistry for microbiology. And in order to get into that chemistry class, you need calculus. So now you're already out to maybe 2 to 3 classes to get into microbiology. So you'll see students in tears like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this at orientation. So we try to avoid that, ahead of time. We tell students that, if you are interested in nursing, it's better to finish the prereqs at your current school, because your current school may not require calculus or a second semester of chemistry to get into microbiology. And that's fine. You don't need that for nursing. Nursing's not asking for calculus. They're not asking for, a second course in chemistry. But if you come to Stonybrook, in order to get into the microbiology class, you have to take those 2 courses. So you got more work to do. Let's put it that way, all right? So it's something that you've got to be very, very careful with because it's a timing issue. Nursing only takes applications once a year. So if you miss that time window, you could be spending a whole nother year here that you don't need. And I hate to see that. So if students are interested in nursing, I always think that it's best to apply after completing the prereqs at your current school. I would say sometimes when it works out okay is if you have all the sciences done at your previous school, and then you need to complete a couple other, social science courses here and there, then you might be okay, and run on time. But again, it could be a course that's really popular, that's closed the first semester, and maybe it's not offered the second semester, and you need it by that point to apply for that next year. So it's really important to understand if you're interested in nursing, it's probably best to finish prerequisites at your current school, whether it's your community college or other 4-year school, and then apply directly to the nursing school. Because what happens with our students who start as freshmen here is they do their first year and then their second year, and they're finishing up the prereqs and they're applying formally over to the hospital side to the nursing school. And they'll probably hear around this time whether they've gotten in and can continue going into the nursing program for their junior year. Some students may not get in. And unfortunately for them, they'll have to decide whether they want to choose a different major or they want to apply to a school outside of Stonybrook for nursing. And that's the reality sometimes, is that it's so competitive. So that's something I'd like to talk, I wanted to talk about too, because we do get a lot of nursing questions as well. Any students that are interested in changing your major, like we've gotten students that have been accepted to Stonybrook and now all of a sudden they want to change their major. In some cases you can do that. In some cases you can't. You can't change into engineering or computer science or applied math. But if it's something like psych and you want to change into history or something like that, you can email us. If you haven't deposited already, we can look into it and help you out, but it's done on an individual basis. If you email us at enroll@stonybrook.edu, we can take a look at it. We're not guaranteeing that we're going to change your major because we do make decisions based on the major. So, in many cases we can't change the major, but if it's something that's in similar circumstances, it's similar college, College of Arts and Science is within that same College of Arts and Science, we could work with you and change that. It's not a problem. If you've deposited already, we can't change it. You're going to have to change it at orientation. So what you would do is actually when you fill out the new student preference form, which is one of the steps that you have to do, you deposit, you submit your orientation fee, and then you fill out the new student preference form. Those are the things you have to do initially, and then you'll get more information sent to you. That new student preference form actually asks you, are you still interested in the major that you chose on your application? If you're not, you can choose the different major that you're interested in. And what that does is it allows the advisor to advise you based on that major. It doesn't change you into that major. You'll actually fill out a change of major form at orientation, and then you can submit that to the registrar's office and change it. So it's definitely possible. It's not an issue, and it's not an issue to change it later on either. Definitely not. It's just a matter of filling out a form. Again, you can't change into engineering, computer science, information. The College of Arts, the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences, you can't just switch into. Nursing, you can't just switch into. Obviously, these are programs you have to apply to. Those are restricted programs, as we call them. But anything else is fine. If you want business and you want to get out of business and go into psych, that's fine. So vice versa, either way. Let's see. Again, students are concerned about the impact of the COVID and how and if anybody's just joined us and they're not sure in terms of where we're at in terms of having classes and that type of thing in person or virtually. We are still preparing to have classes in person in classrooms. But we will know, I think it'll be telling in the next couple of weeks, whether it be I'm assuming it's probably going to be within the next month or so. We're going to start to see a better picture of where we're going to be. And we've prepared for both avenues, whether it be virtually or in person. And, if you're, considering living on campus and that type of thing, and well, then it's a point where you're not paying for campus housing, and you're able to take courses still at Stonybrook virtually online, and so it's not a bad deal either. So either way it's fine. It's just that we're going to wait for the governor. Obviously, it's a little bit more involved with us. We're not a private school. We can't just make a decision and then go with it. There's a lot of more red tape that we have to go through. But again, we don't know anything in terms of we're leaning towards one versus the other, but we're just preparing for both. And but we do know that summer classes are going to be held online only. Okay. So those are all online, the summer courses. And also for orientation is going to be online and virtual as well. And you'll get more information about orientation in the next couple of weeks. Okay. It's still early. The orientations won't start until probably about mid-June.
Okay. So, oops, sorry.
Yep.
Hi. So thank you, everybody. I'm not able to answer everybody's question, but we do have to start wrapping up. So again, like Ryan said, if you want to email us at enroll@stonybrook.edu and we can get back to you. But yeah, so there's so many questions, and we really want to just thank everybody for joining us today. And so if Ryan, Hannah, if you have any final things, we can wrap up and let everyone have a great rest of their night.
Yeah, I just want to say something, and I'll let Hannah take over too. Just thank you all for coming in. I hope I answered some of your concerns and overall concerns. I try to make it as general as possible. And if you have any specific concerns at all, please email us at enroll@stonybrook.edu. We'll be happy to take care of your individual concerns at that point. And it's all counselors that we're reviewing the emails, so we'll get right back to you.